Welcome back to the We Are Here podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Tony.
And we're joined today by Kate Tombaugh. Kate is a Streator native who actually grew up at Woodland, where I went to school, and so somebody that I've known for a long time. Kate has a vast background in the arts, in entertainment, in music, and we had a great time talking with her today about that background, but also how she's passing that on to the next generation through the Poco Festival here in Streator.
Yeah, this was a great topic today, near and dear to my heart. I'm a music guy. I do that for a living. So being able to talk with someone that has the same heart and vision and desire for the arts to be prevalent in kids' lives and in this town's life is important to me. So I hope you enjoy as much as I did. It was very informative. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast.
Well, welcome back to the We Are Here podcast, and we're here today with Kate Tombaugh, and we're so excited to have you join us to discuss Poco and so many other things related to the arts and music. Kate is somebody that I've known most of my life, and so that's part of the reason why I'm excited to have you join us today. You're a Streator native whose family has been living here and serving in our community in so many different facets throughout many generations. We went to school together, and so maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. We've already shared a couple stories about our exciting Scholastic Bowl days, and of course, the main thing to discuss today is Poco, which strives to cultivate a more vibrant community through musical initiatives designed to educate and entertain. So Kate is somebody that I've known as an entertainer on the stage and somebody that's just great to be around, well educated and done so many great things on and off the stage for our community and all over the country. So yeah, Kate, is there anything that you want to share that I missed as far as by way of introductions?
Golly.
Tell us a little about yourself. What would you like people to know about you?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I do have really strong, deep roots in Streator, and I'm just very lucky that I'm a distant relative of Clyde Tombaugh, and so from about age 8, finding out you're related to somebody who discovers a planet,
yes,
like the pressure is on.
Yes.
But it also just means that I've just always been so proud to be here, more so consciously as an adult. I've been away for 20 years since I left for college, not to give away all the dates, but and honestly, I've been trying to make my way back ever since, and I'm just so thrilled to be back. That life happened in a way a little unexpected that allowed me to get back here. And I'll talk a little bit more about kind of how Poco started and why. But yeah, I love it so much that I started a nonprofit from another state in Streator during one of my favorite months to be home at the farm because I missed it so much. When I was a senior in high school, I had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, my mom actually in more recent years told me that she had a sense that I could and probably should go on in music from first or second grade. Mm-hmm. She's a really fantastic musician, singer. Her mom was a really fantastic musician. It just is something I kind of grew up in. But yeah, you do all these things. And at Woodland, you can be on Scholastic Bowl and you can be on the volleyball team and the dance squad and math team and student council and key club and all that. And then you have to decide what you're going to do. So it sounds so silly, but it feels like music kind of kept choosing me. Mm-hmm. I've always loved it. I did my first solo at age 3. I had to get up on a stool to reach the microphone. I did my first show when I was 4. But it really wasn't until I was a music major in college, that first time you wake up at age 21, 22, and you think, oh my gosh, my instrument is in my body. That's terrifying. And you start to realize, it can be scary to go up on stage because I just always done it. It was just like breathing air for me. And then when you start to look at it a little more consciously as a job, it can be a little intimidating.
Sure.
But I've just been so lucky. There's always been something, some competition or some ability to stay in someone's basement for free, or this great job that comes along. Most recently, one of the things I am the most proud of is that I am a very proud mom of 2 young girls. They are amazing. They are very tough vocal coaches, and they're usually right on point and actually guide me in my singing. It's kind of scary. But when I was pregnant with my second child, I worked through my first pregnancy and kept singing. And I'm very proud and feel very fortunate to be doing this now professionally for about 15 years. A little bit internationally, all across the United States. And my focus has always been the Midwest because I always knew this is where I wanted to be. But I was pregnant with my youngest, and I ended up winning in fall of 2020 when a lot of things still weren't back. I ended up winning an international competition. And I'm just so proud to watch that bottom screen that says representing Streator, Illinois.
Yeah.
And of there was over 100 applicants and 12 finalists, and it was all through YouTube and remote. So it was so weird sitting on the couch watching
Singing at
these
a
finals
screen,
on
yeah.
TV that I haven't gotten to see. And you're like, oh my gosh. And my eldest is saying, wow, Mom, she's really good. You know, and like, you could sound like that if you did a little more of this, you know. But it was one of those times of life that was so hard to get over that finish line. And I ended up being the only finalist from the Midwest, and I ended up winning. And again, that was one of those many times along the way that I thought, I don't know, you know, maybe my parents were so good about big fish in a small pond, humility, thinking about real life stuff. And there's always something that brings me back. And I'm so grateful. And that's a big part of the inspiration with Poco. What would I have loved to have done at age 16 in my hometown, in my backyard? What would I have loved to have done as a college student studying music, working with professionals as a junior faculty? And you see people that love music so much, but don't necessarily have the opportunities to keep using it and to keep doing this kind of multi-generational thing. So,
yeah. I feel like we were so blessed when we were young to have, you talked about big fish in a small pond, but we had, through theater, because we did theater together. We did, I was only in chorus for like 1 or 2 years, I think, but
that's an important thing,
but it was
though,
important.
and it has shaped who you are.
Yeah, it really has. But I feel like we were blessed to have these adults who cared and who were willing to pour into us as young people. Then we can go on and pass that on. And so,
for sure.
So just dive a little deeper into. So you mentioned Woodland, small school, K through 12 school. We have 2 school systems here in Streator. Of course, one is in from South Streator on south. So talk a little bit more about that. Obviously, I grew up in it, so I know what it was like. But when you meet people that maybe haven't experienced what a small school community like that, how it helps you, what would you tell them? How would you say it has benefited you and specifically has prepared you to go out across the country, internationally? How has that prepared you to do what you continue to do today and what you've been able to accomplish?
Yeah, I've had so many great, I've just been really lucky. Part of it is trying to be open. I mean, I was very black and white at age 18, and I've had to learn life doesn't really quite work that way. Sure. So that was a little bit of just kind of growing up in a little bit of a bubble, although my parents will say, we did not raise you under a rock. I don't know. We know we taught you this. I don't know why you say you don't know this. But I think, honestly, one of the biggest parts about being at a small school, it can be painful because you are with the same people, give or take, from kindergarten on.
Yeah.
Things that happened to you that were embarrassing in 5th grade.
They're still there.
They are still a thing. Your like that picture, which happened to me, is going to come back out of the woodworks your senior year that you thought, maybe everybody's forgotten about this by now. But actually, I think it's so interesting. One thing that most surprised me about singing, it's a lot of psychology. It's a lot of people relations. You're trying to connect. You're trying to tell stories. And, you are forced in a very healthy way to interact with all types of people on a daily basis. I feel like, and I've never had the bigger school experience, so I don't know this for sure. I could be completely wrong, but it feels like there's a little bit of comfort and safety finding your niche at a bigger school, but you can be that band kid and hang out with just band kids.
Yeah.
And at a smaller school like Woodland, for me, I mean, I had so much life experience in psychology and learning different people and how their motivations work and how to try to get everybody to get behind the same goals.
Yeah.
And when I show up for a gig, it's we call it the first day of school.
Yeah.
And it's every single time you have a gig, you have worked on your music on your own, maybe with a coach that you've paid, to give lessons, a coach that can play the piano, knows languages, knows notes, all this stuff. Like we have coaches and then we have teachers. And you show up on the first day and you have to figure out the dynamics real fast. One thing that's been really helpful for me, because there have been a few times where I've thought, I don't really know this is for me. The more that I do it and the higher up I get, the more the more power I give myself, the more I've been able to shape the environment I want to work in. When some of the, I don't know, just things that aren't necessarily productive and aren't necessarily positive come up, and I can say, just squash and say, we don't need to do that.
Yeah.
That was a lot harder for me as a student, as an apprentice, as somebody who was training. And you have to figure out people real fast because you have to put on a production in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you have to work together. That is something that I never, ever, ever would have expected. Now, telling me at age 18, I have to decide one thing felt really unfair because you're doing all these things. And you're like, what are you talking about? I can be involved in everything. And then I picked a college that also kind of leans into that. So I still kind of put that off for 4 years. But it's definitely one of those things that just really shaped and molded who I am.
Nice. Very good. And if you don't mind me asking, where did you go to school? Where did you go to college at?
I went to Illinois Wesleyan.
Okay, I thought it was Wesleyan. And
they were the only school that didn't laugh at me when I said, I really want to be an English major. But my mom says I really need to study music, which is like the opposite of all the music majors I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And she wasn't forcing it. She just said, kiddo, I really think you should go on in music.
You have
and I
this
said,
talent. Yeah,
what would I do? And she goes, vocal performance. And I'm like, that's a thing that I could do, And she was a music major in college. So obviously she's like, okay. But they were the only ones that didn't laugh at me when I said, I want to do a dual degree and I have to finish it in 4 years.
Yeah.
And it was tough. Lots of summer classes, lots of overloads. But that was a really great fit for me too, because for those that don't know, I sing everything under the sun, but my big gigs are usually with opera companies and symphonies.
Okay.
So, and I had no knowledge of any of that. I mean, even with a trained mom, opera was a very foreign concept to us. And I can tell you how that happened because that was a very weird way how I got into opera.
Sure.
But the big thing was, I think if I had gone to a conservatory, I had to go to an Illinois state school, so that helped. But if I had gone to a conservatory and I had only focused music in college, I don't know if I would still be singing today.
Oh, wow.
I worked with a teacher that said, okay, you have to study Italian, you have to study German, French, English. But then if you do all that and you get all your requirements done, then we can do jazz and we can do musical theater and all that sort of stuff. So it was another kind of flexible place, which again, put off the inevitable, like you got to figure out what you're doing in life sort of thing.
I think that's okay though, right?
I mean, it served me well.
Out for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I still haven't figured it out.
I think, what keeps coming to mind is that, and we're kind of focused more on the educational side of things, but that's what the vision of Poco is educating young people. There are times to be tough, there's times to be, putting people to brass tacks and saying, you've got to make a choice here. But there's also times to say, well, you need to you need to kind of broaden your vision here. You need to be a little bit diversified. And I think it's okay to know as an educator, as a people who leads young people, to know the difference and know the right time to say that, to say what's the right thing for your pupil. There is a humility that goes into that, and you have to be aware of their needs as well. And so I'm thankful for you that you had educators and leaders who were willing to know that for you. And when we're still figuring life out from 18 to 25, right? So
Yes.
when we're adults,
So we met like 15 minutes ago.
It's true.
I think we met like 15 minutes
You
ago.
seem lovely.
So do you. But as I'm listening to your story, there are so many parallels with mine as well.
Music, yeah.
I grew up in a small town, all that, graduated high school, had no idea what I wanted to do in life at all. I didn't go to school for a year because I just had no idea. But there was always music. Like it was always just this thing that was kind of there that I did. And then one day it dawned on me that, well, what if I did something in music? I don't know what. And so I went to Lincoln Christian College and got a degree in music there. But there was a composition major and a vocal major, and that was it. I didn't want to be a composition major. So I'm like, I guess I'll be a vocal major. So for the next 4 years, I was classically trained, which was not something I was at all, because the Midwest isn't your operatic mecca of.
Au contraire, mon frère. That is a misconception that I am debunking.
But at 18,
no, for
it is
sure.
not.
And music majors are changing. They're realizing, hey, because even when I was in college, arts admin was not a thing. And not that I could have fit in any more classes. Oh my goodness. I don't know where I would have fit in a single more thing. But, if I could have taken education classes to say, yeah, I'm going to be in education, all the time, because I'm not a formally trained educator. I've just always done it, and I've always had a passion for it. Arts admin, recording and electronics and all the things that come together. Even medicine and music is a huge thing that's coming together, not just through music therapy, but even beyond that, they're learning so much. I mean, I've had friends that, created one of my best friends, actually, she created a choir when she was at Northern Illinois University for her master's with patients suffering from aphasia after a stroke, and they couldn't speak.
Wow.
And you just learn how music taps. I mean, I get chills just talking about it.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I actually was an unofficial, because I have no training. I don't know why people always let me do these things I have no training for. But then I'm a little bit of a, whether it's good or bad, I'm a little bit of a dive in and kind of figure it out. And also hopefully have the humility to say, I can't do this.
Right.
And I ask a lot of questions because I obviously didn't know much about running a nonprofit before I was like, I'm going to do this. But I was an unofficial music therapist while I was a master's student in Cincinnati. And I actually first started going to this woman's house once a week. It was very hush-hush because she was a really big deal. First female producer, TV producer in the nation. And I think probably she was a little wealthy, and that's why it was maybe a little hush-hush, because there was a lot of people trying to take advantage. She had a stroke. She was completely non-responsive the first day I went, on a breathing tube. And by the end of our time together, she was speaking in French, really upset if I didn't bring attractive men with me every time I visited. We went to Red Lobster and had dinner together, and I understand it was hard for a lot of people to see her because they knew her before. But for me, it was this amazing experience watching her go from this to this, speaking with me again in French, and just, it's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
I mean, music affects us all in such a way. And I think I agree with you in the sense that because music nothing really is a straight trajectory, right? It really isn't.
No.
But the idea is, okay, if you want to be a doctor, you go to medical school.
Right.
Everybody has that one decision day, and then they know where they're going. And I'm not trying to make it sound like it's simple or straightforward or anything like that. But there is this feeling of, golly, what kind of careers are available to me? How do I keep music going on after high school or college, even if you're in the college ensembles? What can I do to do that? And that's actually a big part of the discussions we have at Poco a Poco.
Which is good because a lot of times I think music is just part of who you are, so you don't think of it as something that you can do for a living necessarily, or you know, I don't know. We live in an era where people are trying to monetize everything that they do.
Yes.
But for me, it really was, I have no idea what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But music was that foundation that was always there.
And here's the thing. I know a lot of music majors. And even after I went to college, one thing that I do a ton, not so much post-COVID, but lots of master classes, lots of college visits, different presentations I do. Sometimes I'll just they'll give me a group of students at lunch and say, talk to Kate, and they're like, tell me what to do. And I'm like, well, I can't do that, but I can be a sounding board and try to help you go from this point to this point if you can follow a few of these things. But I think that it's hopefully changing that people think about that. You know, it's like you grow up and you love singing in choir, you love drawing and art class, you love doing all these things, and they're actually feeding your soul and helping you express yourself and making you a more fully formed human. Right. But then you don't have it as a class anymore, and we have to consciously think about instilling that into our lives. And at Poco a Poco, I mean, it's a very unusual setup in that we are taking, for me, the ideal student is somebody that loves learning, loves music, wants to learn more about music, doesn't have to be the star student at their school, doesn't even have to have been in choir before or taken private voice lessons, because we have voice, theory, guitar, choir, piano, and then a whole bunch of electives, because that pigeonholing thing we were talking about, that's what I'm trying to avoid. To say, listen, you could be very interested in music therapy. You just don't even know that it's a thing. Or maybe you're not going to go on as a music major or have, a career in music, but let's talk about how you make sure music is a part of your lifelong experience. Because we stop doing it and then we're like, what's wrong with me? And we don't create that part into our lives. We don't keep infusing that. And I've met tons of music majors, some who have gone on to do all sorts of different things, and some that have left the music field, but I have yet to meet a non-successful music major because there is something about the training there and something about, it's a very painful process. You have to really look inwardly a ton. I would imagine that has a lot to do with like seminary training too. Well, deep questions and like, what is the meaning of life and why am I here?
Bible college is not kind.
No.
Yes. I mean, I cried in so many voice lessons, and it was for a lot of different reasons. Right. It wasn't just because I had a breakup the night before. You have to really think about it. And so through my 20s, figuring out, how do I carve this out into something? And it's a constant balance, of course, but then having friends in these jobs that they started the day after they graduated, and then it changes in that late 20 era, and they all call me and they say, well, you've always had lots of different jobs, so I figured you could make me feel better about this. And like, sister, let me tell you, I can help you through this.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Yeah. So walking with these young artists, musicians through Poco a Poco, you've shared some of your vision there for trying to eliminate that pigeonhole, trying to give them a broad view of what it takes to, the psychology of working with others in music. So I'm gonna change this next question just a little bit.
Go for it.
So
I'm ready.
So we've kind of heard your heart for the next generation of artists. So what are the challenges that come with that? What are you seeing? What are young artists bringing to the table? What are some of the ins and outs of operating Poco a Poco with this next generation of artists, and where do you see your role in that as the executive director, but then also your team? How are you all engaging them in those needs, but then also trying to push them forward to a better future?
Absolutely. Well, I will say that it's different a little bit every year. There's usually a small time frame where I have that, what was I thinking? This is a lot of work. And
What
then
have I
it's
done?
usually
Yeah.
about the time some applications start coming in January.
Yeah.
And then I start meeting the next batch of young artists. I mean, next batch, that sounds so terrible. But, that year's, and oh my gosh, they are so bright-eyed and enthusiastic and joyful. And the faculty, and I say it every single year, we gain just as much from them, if not more, because there's just such a beautiful earnestness. They want to learn. They want to soak up information. They want to be treated like adults. They want to be thinking about their future. They want to be connected. They want to be making a difference in the world. They want to be storytellers. I mean, all these beautiful things. What we try to do is we try to give a dose of reality.
Yeah.
Because two things. So bear with me. I want to make sure I say both sides.
Sure.
There's a lot of very, very specific goals sometimes that people have. Like, I'm going to sing on Broadway.
Yeah.
That's a thing that we see. Who am I to tell somebody they're not going to sing on Broadway? I mean,
Sure.
if somebody had told me at age 15, listen, honey, there's no way you're going to go on in music and be an opera singer and all that stuff. And honestly, it's only because some people that weren't in my life and were not family or friends or teachers that said, hey, took me aside, this is something you should think about. I think encouragement goes a long way, and
Absolutely.
I don't think that it's a bad thing. What we want to do though is give some options and talk about it's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to incorporate this into your life. Try to be open to what life presents to you while being proactive, while thinking about what your passions are, thinking about your skill sets, where are your holes, what can you work on, and where do those all intersect?
Sure.
And then see what happens. But if I had not learned to be a little more open, it was very hard for me. I never would have gotten that first job in Utah for a year, singing opera full time with Utah Opera, Utah Symphony. And truly the year before that, or 2 years before that, before I started my master's, opera was the farthest thing from my brain. So I'm not going to be that person saying this is absolutely not, because there is so much that goes into a person's life. You have no idea what life challenges are going to come, what's going to happen with someone's health and life circumstances. But we want to give them more tools. We want to give them more awareness. We have so many success stories, and but I'm going to talk about one in particular that I'm really, really proud of. She's a Woodland graduate, and originally that was something she thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be a performer. I want to perform at the biggest stage. And that was how she came in as an 8th grader, freshman, in high school. And again, I'm not going to be the one to say that's not going to happen, because there's so many things that could happen. And I do think a lot of it is persistence and timing and talent and all of that we just can't possibly predict. As the years kind of went through, though, she started to say, I'm not so sure if I'm going to be a music major, but I want music to be a part of my lifelong experience, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work. I do this thing where it's a little bonkers, but it's what makes it so successful in an 8-day time. I handcraft everybody's schedules individually.
Oh, wow.
I meet with them all personally at their auditions. I find out what are your skill sets. I talk to them very honestly about these are the things I see that you need to work on. Yeah. And we try to gain that trust of saying, listen, we're not going to have you do anything that we haven't found is a tried and true tactic. We try to gain that trust. We perform for them. They see us walking the walk, all those things. And from that, I create a handcrafted, individualized schedule for every single student.
And there's how many students now?
Well, it depends on the year. Yeah.
Typically
in that 30 range,
Yeah.
but we've never gone as high as 40. That would
Yeah.
probably be our cap, because it's a 1 to 3
Yeah.
faculty to student ratio. I say that it's usually more like 1 to 2,
Sure.
1 to 2.5. It's very intimate.
Yeah.
And we do this mixture of private sessions, small group sessions, large group sessions. But then if I know there's something they're dealing with, college decisions or career choices, and there's somebody that I can pair them up with to have conversations. And it was after a conversation she had with my admin, who had been my very first voice student, that had done opera all through her master's, taken some time off, and then decided, I want to be an ENT, and went to Columbia College in New York, but worked for us the summer before she went. She had several one-on-one conversations with this student, and the student was like, oh my gosh, Kate, I've got it. I'm going to go to ISU. I love special education and special needs students. I'm going to be a music minor. I want to infuse music into my classroom to help these students. And again, I get shivers. I'm like, that's your thing. I couldn't put it there for you, but that's it. And we've had students that call, 8 years running. Now I have alums that call and they say, Ms. Tombaugh, I have to tell you, Poco was the most important thing I did in high school. Yeah. That's not why we're doing it, but that's pretty freaking cool.
That's a good win. Yeah, that's a good feeling.
I love it.
Yeah.
I just love because so quickly Poco became this thing beyond me. It was this idea I had. I love this quote from The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. She says, "At first, people refuse that a strange new thing can be done. Then they begin to hope it can be done. Then they begin to see it can be done. Then it is done, and all the world wonders why it wasn't done centuries ago."
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything super crazy, but when I started my one-woman show that I wrote myself and toured across 7 states, at first people were like, what? And then they're like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like that with Poco. And even this with the podcast, in a year or 2 years, you're going to have everybody like, I wish I'd thought of that. That's amazing. That's such a cool idea. So that's kind of that's the coolest thing. Like, I truly just feel like I'm guiding this wonderfully small, flexible, but massive growing ship of enthusiastic people that want to make a difference, that want to be connected, that want to have music in their lives. And I'm just guiding the ship and trying to, create the opportunities. I love it when somebody comes to me and says, oh, we got to do this. And, if it's like a trip to Italy, for instance, which was suggested to me, I said, Poco a poco, little by little, we want to be around 50 years from now. And that's a great idea, but maybe bring that up to me in like 15 years. I don't ever want to crush people's ideas. But there's so much, I just try to guide because there's so much great things happening.
When you have those early adopters, right? And usually it's a small but mighty number, and then, like you said, as people see, oh, this can be done, and you start to do it, I think it starts to make more sense to more people, and you get more on board and more momentum. And so, maybe 15 years from now you will be in, how many countries? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know, but
well, we've actually, that's an interesting point you bring up. I have been approached by multiple people and multiple institutions that are like, since our beginning, why are you doing this in Streator? They're not from Streator, obviously, so they don't know why I'm doing it in Streator. I said, listen, I would not be able to do what I want to do the way I want to do it unless it's in Streator. Yeah. Or it's because of that attitude that I'm doing it in Streator. But just saying, because watch out, I'm sassy and I'm very stubborn. So psychology with me, don't tell me I can't do something, because then I'll go do it.
Don't discount.
But we are unusual in that it allowed us flexibility during COVID, because we completely transitioned to an online training program with very little notice in 2020. We had a program, and then we did a hybrid in 2021, and
been there, done that.
Yeah.
Oh, golly.
Let's not.
Oh, I know. We don't really have to talk about the big COVID elephant in the room, because we're so sick of talking about it. Although we did find out last fall that this fall, but fall of 2023, that we received a $5,000 COVID relief grant just for arts organizations. So that really kind of puts us back on track a great way post-COVID.
That's great.
Anyway, I think I lost my train of
thought.
thought.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So I kind of want to go back a little bit, just since we're talking about Streator, and we'll come back to theater in a moment, but and music and arts, and but how has Streator changed? So you mentioned you couldn't do this anywhere else, right?
I wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't want to. But how has Streator changed from what you remember from growing up here? That's really the focus of this podcast, is just we see this city as improving, and we want people to see that as well. And so what is it about, specifically, for you, it's, I'm sure the family connections and things like that, but what about the city do you see that has changed since you left going to school and coming back? What do you love about the city today? What did you love back then, but what do you love even more now? So tell us a little bit more about your view of Streator now.
Yeah, well, I've had the unique experience that up until last summer, I was not living full-time in Streator, but running a music festival in town.
Yeah.
And our first year in 2017, we didn't have a coffee shop. I mean, even the Starbucks and Kroger's, I don't believe was there because... Yeah. Oh, golly, singers need their coffee. Let me tell you, I had to tell the faculty, it'll be worth your time. Don't worry. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. There is coffee.
And I wasn't a coffee drinker until a year ago. But Wall Dogs hadn't visited until the following year.
Yeah.
And all the restaurants and all the things that are coming up, that wasn't here yet in 2017. So my faculty that comes in, and we tend to rotate faculty for the sake of the organization, but also for the students. If they do 3, 4, 5 years with us, I want them to have a huge network of professionals and not just 6 people that they know. Because who knows who's going to be that one person that really inspires you. So through their eyes, they are always so excited. They love coming to Streator. They love being here. They stay with host families who are great ambassadors for town and just so kind and generous and totally overfeeding and overshowing Streator. And I always say they're going to be very busy when they're here, but it's just a beautiful thing. And through their eyes and in coming, back very, very interjectedly, I'm just amazed at the differences that I see. I mean, when I was in college and I started coming back to do concerts, and I was very new to opera, but it's been really interesting and kind of fun to get to introduce people, to get to be the person that has somebody hear an opera aria in a foreign language live for the very first time.
Yeah.
I will never forget when one of my first stage directors at Inga Lane went to go see an opera at the Santa Fe Opera, which is a very, very famous open air opera company that starts, the first notes is with the setting of the sun behind as a backdrop. It's a glorious thing. And she goes, I went and saw my first opera because you introduced me to opera. And she goes, you're going to be there someday. And I was like, oh no, this is the Santa Fe Opera. You don't know what you're talking about. And no joke, I was a young artist there the next summer.
Oh, wow.
I know. She made it happen. But I have always found that this idea that because opera is in a foreign language or it's different, it's not pop music, it's not country, people aren't going to like it. People just want to feel something. Yeah. People just want to be connected with. And I have always had lots of support in those concerts. And that probably was a little bit of the seed with Poco a Poco. Since growing up as a kid, I think you're not so much aware of the hometown that you're growing up in, but I think the thing that always strikes me at Streator, it is such a giving community. We don't have a lot, but we give, give. And there are so many people doing great things. I mean, you drive around town and you can't go more than a half a mile without seeing another beautiful garden that the Streator Garden Club has put together.
Gardens and
the Keeping Christmas Close to Home committee with the lighted up pumpkins. And there's so many people behind the scenes that are doing so much. And I would just encourage people that, first of all, people will never turn away money.
No.
If you have that ability, feel free. Yeah. You don't have to bug us or we'll find you and we'll gladly make that happen.
Yeah.
But there's also, it doesn't have to be a check. There's so many things. I mean, even just with Poco a Poco, like I said, we have host housing, we have meals provided, we have volunteers, we have people putting up posters and spreading the word. There's so many ways to do that. And we are stronger together and the more that we can be involved. And I think too, that the youth want to be more involved. Yes. I see that. They want to feel like they're a part of something.
Yes.
And that's kind of cool, getting to see our Streator young artists intermingle with young artists from all over. We tend to have a focus on Streator artists, but in 7 years, we've had over 90 students from 4 states across 28 schools.
That's incredible. Wow.
The other states is because either people know me personally and they say, I just want my grandkid to come and train with you and I'll stay at a hotel for the week. That's rare, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Or with the online training, we had students in Indiana and Tennessee and Ohio, or Kentucky. Those are one of the 4. I don't think Indiana yet, but maybe someday. So it's just really exciting to see the pride that grows and the confidence that grows in them individually, but as the students of Streator to say, welcome to my town.
Yeah.
Look at what we're doing. This is cool. This is happening in my backyard.
There is a desire that I've seen, mentoring young people in this generation, but that I've seen to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and that is growing as you go younger and younger in the generations, I think. And so they want to take ownership of it. They want to invite people into it. Imagine. I'm sure there's this excitement for a high schooler meeting someone from Kentucky, and it's like, oh, you want to be connected to my hometown. This is somebody that I can continue talking with on the internet, and can make connections with. And the world is no longer just what's right outside your front door, but it's still important to focus on what's right outside your front door, because community matters, and community has just gotten bigger and more interconnected, I think. So,
and that's such a basic thing, being able to have something to be passionate or enthusiastic about, feeling like you're a part of something, feeling like you're making a difference. I mean, we know from all sorts of things happening in the world, everybody needs that. And if we can do something that's positive, that's actually proactively making a difference,
Absolutely.
At least how I see making a difference. You talked about, challenges with students, and they are not lacking in motivation whatsoever. I've done tons and tons of opera outreach. I mean, at Utah Opera, we did over 200 performances across the entire state. They've got it figured out. They have about 5 organizations between the symphony, the ballet, the opera, and I don't know what the other 2 arms are, but they go to every junior high and high school in the state with their program for free every 4 years.
Wow.
So I sang a
incredible.
lot of opera in front of a lot of kids, and they're always very respectful. They're always a little bit shell-shocked.
Yeah.
There's usually a lot of giggling because, if you're nervous or you don't quite know what to make of something, there's some,
Right.
But I mean, the thing that I notice about our students is across the board, if you can treat them with respect like adults, they want to be a part of this. And even if they've never experienced opera, and again, I should say, people assume that because I sing opera, that's all I do, that's all I sing, or because I'm an opera singer, that's all we do at Poco, and that could not be farther
true,
from the truth. But I do very much believe in this main foundational necessity of singing, that, if you want to be that 90-year-old singing in your church choir, you have to have a certain basic technique to get there, So that's kind of where we go with that.
So backing out again, kind of to the
I think there's 3 questions there I did not answer.
No, that's okay. That's okay. That's
Bring
okay.
me back, Paul.
No, it's great. I just want to talk kind of the opposite. So we've talked about how, I think the way I would summarize this, so we've talked about how community affects the arts. How would you say the arts affect community?
Oh,
so
golly.
kind of the opposite direction. How have you seen the arts make Streator, or whatever communities, any community that you've been a part of, make it better?
Mm-hmm.
And why is it? So if you were, I guess, to boil that down to its root of the question, why do the arts matter for community? If we were to lose music, that would be terrible for all of us, as all 3 of us being musicians. But if the arts were to go away, how would it affect our community? Or maybe the positive of that is, how do the arts positively affect our community and build it up to make it even better?
Well, I think it's an extremely important question. I think it's extremely difficult to answer, which is why we have to figure out how to be able to talk about it more, because in our society, we put money behind the things that we value as important. Mm-hmm. So when we're not, I don't want to get controversial here, but when we're not paying our teachers a whole lot, we're not paying our musicians a whole lot, and all the people that are truly like affecting quality of life, it does. It can, like, just because the way our society is built up, money equals value, equals worth. And I think we need to start kind of changing that conversation on its head, because here we have students that that would be making a huge difference in whatever corner of the world they end up in, that maybe feel like they can't do that because they've been told, you know, either in their family or by society that it's not worthwhile. You know, what are you going to do with that? You can't make money doing that. But I think we see, and I saw through COVID, that was a very, very stark reality. Like literally when the music stopped, when the art stopped, we struggled.
It hurt people
in all ways possible. And yet there's this inspiring energy that the arts brings where it's like, it will be made. Don't push it away. It's gonna happen, whether it comes through the cracks or the creases of whatever position. I mean, I'm always so inspired by the stories of, you know, there's operas based on the music in concentration camps during the Holocaust where they're hiding their instruments, and there's composers creating these things that the children of the concentration camp put on for all of the, you know, people there at the, obviously not the Nazis, but all the people that are in the barracks. It's always been a necessity. So it's a very hard question to answer. It's something that I deal with all the time writing grants. How do you can talk about the qualitative benefits of music and the arts, but how do you put that into something that a more business-minded person is going to say, okay, this equals this. We haven't been around long enough to be able to say, you know, our students that came through our program are this much higher in this or this much more successful, or they're still involved in music. We know through stories and anecdotes and testimonials. We will get to that point in a couple of years where we'll do surveys and we'll be able to actually, you know, collect some more data on that. But you just around the board for generations and generations, test scores are better. When your student is involved in music and the arts, they are a more well-rounded student. They're more balanced. They're emotionally, you know, healthier. They're doing better in school. Sometimes those extracurricular activities are what brings kids regularly to school. I mean, how do you argue that? I don't know.
I don't think people understand how community-driven music is. Everything you do in music revolves around a community of people.
And bringing together people that maybe wouldn't normally be brought together.
Exactly.
And not having conversations that are divisive, only being focused on, because I love sports and I'm so grateful for all the things that life has taught me in sports, but there's tribalism that comes from that. There is, you know, competition that comes from that. And in the music setting instead, it's everyone is winning. Everyone is coming together. I'm so glad you brought up that point, Tony.
It's because I work with a lot of musicians through the church here, and you know, you learn how to deal with people. You learn how to, you know, there's conflict on occasion, but you learn how to deal with that. Like you learn how to deal with it and talk about it and be open about it, because the goal is for everyone to come together for one purpose. And it's so hard for non-musicians to see that. Like, I don't know, you're just up there singing. It's like, no, like I'm listening. Like if you're in a choir, like I'm listening to the person next to me. And that person's listening to the person next to them. And we're listening to the sopranos over there. And we're trying not, you know, everyone's trying to blend and be together. And we're all doing this for one purpose. And I think that's an important thing. My boys, we homeschooled up until this year. And they've been involved in the bands at the junior high and high school the entire time. So when we transitioned from homeschooling to high school, because they're in the high school now, it was an easy transition because they already had a core group of people. And everyone's musicians and everyone's involved in the choir and all that. So it was a super easy like social transition for them because they already had that built in, because there's a connection between musicians that just goes beyond. Just goes beyond. It is
the language you speak.
Right. You can't explain.
It's
hard
universal.
to explain.
It's international. There's no language to it. It is the language.
Right. But it's hard to put that on paper.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think the first time I truly became aware of that, we went on a college tour to Russia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. And at that time in 2004, the 3 Baltic states had only had their independence for about a decade.
Yeah.
And music is a huge thing there. And they actually, you talk about the singing revolution where they held hands and sang their national songs to come together. And they have these huge outdoor, oh my gosh, I would love to go sometime in the summer to see this. Huge outdoor festivals that are humongous. Our choir took up a teeny tiny little bit of it. And it's just filled with people in this huge grassy lawn. But I'm sure we did not sing them very well, but we sang their national anthems in each of the countries. And just everyone was openly weeping. I remember when I was about 22 and I did my first opera program in Graz, Austria. And I was singing on the town square for a little bit of change to make some money, busking. And
You do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
singing a bunch of, they really loved Rodgers and Hammerstein melodies and tunes at the time. And I did, I made good money for a couple of dinners. But I had this woman come up and we could not communicate. But through her broken English and my poor understanding of German, I figured out something huge had happened in her life, some huge life chapter. And she was going on a cross-country bike trip by herself to try to work through this huge thing that had happened. I didn't know her at all, but seriously, Saturday morning marketplace, super busy. We held hands in the middle of the marketplace and I sang Amazing Grace to her and we both just sobbed.
Wow.
And I think about that woman all the time. I hope she's well, but it's like, wow, I'm very fortunate that I truly have had moments where I feel the power of transformation because of music. I mean, obviously I could talk about how cool music is all the time.
Incredible.
And my friends tease me that I am the poster child of North Central Illinois because I'm always like, let me tell you about my hometown. But now I'm actually walking the walk being a Streator native and now Streator resident.
Yeah.
And that feels good because we're not just, but we are a 1-week music festival. There are people putting in work every single day for our kids and for our community and for all of our institutions. We are just trying to supplement that in whatever way we can. And I never forget the fact that we are supplemental and we are trying to boost up the hard work people are doing every single day. But I think, there's so many great things going on. We just keep figuring out ways to collaborate, ways to boost each other up, ways to bring in some synergy. And it's really exciting to be a part of. And I'm grateful because there got to be a time when I started feeling a little bit of guilt. I regularly have guilt. I'm not sure why, but that's another conversation for a different day. But I thought, how can I be running this when I'm not on the ground working with these kids more often and really seeing, are we doing what is best for the community? Are we imposing what we think is good for these students? Are we really able to listen and absorb and make the little changes to keep growing and keep getting better? And that part feels a lot better. And I do get to see, I have so much to learn. In terms of my music contacts and the places to eat and all the stuff to do, I am still a newbie. I'm looking at it through fresh eyes.
Well, what a blessing to be able to look at it at this point. And I think every program, every organization, whether it's nonprofit or in the business sector or whatever, you come to a point where you've been doing something for a while and you almost have to come at it with fresh eyes and kind of that. I mean, that's why Walmart has secret shoppers. It's go. I don't know if Walmart actually has secret shoppers, but somebody
it sounds
does.
legit.
Somebody
I was
does.
there with you.
But having somebody from without is one option, but to be able to kind of not completely start over because you've learned a lot since you started Poco, but to be able to come at it with fresh eyes and to be able to evaluate and to revamp what needs revamped. That's what a blessing to be able to do that.
And that's kind of, I wish I could say that was all genius on my side. That just was luck. Like that is built into the fact that we have students that age out of the program, and we have new students that come in and they're like, wow. And to watch the difference between their first year and their fourth year, and they're still learning, because there's new classes every year, but there's always those sweet calls after the first day of training where they're like, I don't know about this. And I go, just breathe through it. Trust. You're going to be amazed at where you are in just 7-8 short days.
Yeah. That's incredible. What a great place to be able to see that growth in your students and to grow as an organization. I think the only other question I had, really, as far as that we haven't covered, is roadblocks and barriers, and we've talked a little bit about that. But just really quick, what do you see you're doing to remove those roadblocks and those barriers in the community? I love that you acknowledged, that this is not just a youth thing. This is not just a Poco thing. There's an entire community of people supporting young artists. Tony has said before, it takes a community to build a community, and that is absolutely.
I don't know if I coined that.
Is that an original?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like when I say it next time, do I need to say that's a Tony Ross original?
I really like it though.
I just said it one day.
And
I probably heard it somewhere.
And another thing that we say, I'm still going to give you credit for.
Okay, that's cool. I'll take it.
Is just grow where you planted, and
for
growing.
Sure.
You grow as you grow your community. And so, what are some of those barriers that you're trying to actively remove? Just maybe just a couple quick ones, and then and I also want to give you an opportunity to share with people how they can get plugged in with Poco because it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities to. We've helped with like food and things like that, but housing and all sorts of other opportunities. So what are some of those barriers?
Yeah.
And then how can people get involved in helping remove those barriers?
Well, I would say the two big barriers culturally, and this is not a Streator thing. This is a nationwide trend. When I was in college, my parents took me up to Ravinia for the first time. And I got to see The Most Happy Fella by Frank Lesser. And he was passed, but his wife was there talking. And she had been a really well-known singer, I believe in the 30s, 40s. I'm going to try not to, say that incorrectly, but somewhere in there, what is considered the golden era of singing. Mm-hmm. And she said something to me that, you know it instinctively, but it's not until somebody says it specifically that you think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. She just talked about how a singer was a singer was a singer. It's not this classical singer and this jazz singer and pop singer and all these different styles. It's all based on that main foundation, which does resonate with me because I very much believe that the better I get at singing and the more I work on my craft, the more I can sing anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But just in general, I mean, again, you think about me growing up in a small town, and again, this is not Streator specific, but in a musical family, and I truly had not consciously even thought about opera. I actually had a very bad experience in my first opera that I said, I am not doing this ever again. The short story of it is I was double cast. I was a lady in the Magic Flute, but then they also made me be the dancing monkey. There might have been a whole debacle with the huge head that got knocked around with my eye holes on the other side. And I got caught in the curtains one night and I fell backwards onto a platform and couldn't get up because the head was I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this ever again. But all of that to say, I realized that that spring, a year after I graduated from Wesleyan, I was working at Opera Theater of St. Louis, and all their operas are in English. I was a young artist paid. That was the first professional opera I saw. Wow. But I said, for years before that, opera is stupid. It's not for me, because I had this very stereotypical idea about it. So kids just aren't getting exposed to it. Yeah. And of course, if it's unusual or it's weird or you haven't had any exposure to it, it's going to feel like it's not relevant to you. And opera and classical music is absolutely 100% relevant. And so what they're hearing on the radios is very much manipulated, changed sound. That's okay to an extent, but I do worry in today's era of filters and social media and all of the fixing on magazines that we're starting to push back against a little bit. But when you go and you see a classical singer perform, that is it.
That's what you hear.
That is not, it's not like you're going to hear a recording of your favorite artist and go to a live concert and say, whoa, you can't actually match pitches?
Where's the auto-tune?
Yeah. So that's just one thing that I'm personally trying to kind of break down some barriers and just make it more accessible and say, hey, listen, you know, I am not an 80-year-old, 300-pound, like, hopefully a little uncool, but like not totally uncool person. And I like opera. Like, let's just give it a try. Let's just dive in. Yeah. And again, I do not want to sound like I'm picking on sports at all, because I grew up in sports, and it is because of my access to sports and my experiences that truly molded me into who I am. What I'm finding, though, even more so intensively after COVID, there's just this uber focus. Kids have to choose one thing, and I do not think that's healthy.
Yeah.
I don't understand why one sport takes up 12 months out of the year, 7 days a week, and you cannot maybe be a kid a little bit too, but try all these other things. So we know that we're not going to, gather every student from every corner of Streator in the half-hour radius around. But I have a lot of students that come to me that desperately want to be involved and truly cannot, because they can't possibly carve out
the time,
time for that week. So that's an issue. And again, that is not Streator specific by any means. It's just kind of a larger trend.
Just kind of a limited margin in our lives and the opportunity to explore other things. Yeah.
I don't know how we come back from that when it's already been like that, but I will say that anybody who's a little skeptical, I think, from what I've seen and been told, gets it by the end of the week.
Yeah.
And last year, for instance, we had a bunch of students that weren't involved in their choir programs at school that are now in their choir programs at school. I mean, we are trying to bolster their programs and remotivate kids and bring them back, because a lot of them didn't come back after COVID, or they think, well, I've never done it and I'm in high school, it's too late. Oh gosh, you can't be saying that.
Junior in high school, I started choir.
Yes, you can't be saying that.
Yeah.
I mean, college even, community choirs even. I'm still hoping I might get to play in a community orchestra someday if I ever get my violin back up.
Nice. Well, thank you for addressing that. And then, please share, how can people get involved with Poco.
Mm-hmm.
So you said, I think January is kind of when applications start rolling in. So
yeah, people have asked before, why are the applications so early? Why are there auditions? Auditions really are not a means of making people so scared that they don't apply. It truly is because of that individualized scheduling I was talking about. Yeah. And I hire faculty according to what that year's group of young artists seem like they're kind of leaning towards. There was one year where at auditions, I had 7 different kids say, I really want to do vocal jazz. And I said, I know somebody that would be really good at creating a vocal jazz class, Yeah. So for high school age young artists, which is anybody currently in 8th grade through 12th grade, as of the summer, June 8th through 15th, 2024, that's incoming freshmen through graduated seniors. Those applications open in January. We start auditions in March, possibly as early as late February. We do a rolling admissions because, every year it's hard to know how quickly applications will come in. And but we have that class fully decided by May 1st, because I have to take that month to create those schedules and get it out to people and get them out to the faculty. Our junior high training program, that registration will open in March. There's no audition for that. That is a sign up, show up, have a great time. You still get a t-shirt. You still get to perform on the community concert. Last year we gave them hand clappers and they loved that. They were really enthusiastic in the front row, and it was so much fun. It just brought this great energy. But what I will say to people is, first of all, if they are representing Streator, if they are at a Streator-based school, and that includes Woodland, if they're homeschooled in the Streator area, they are apply and accepted into our program. They are automatically sponsored by the Deacon Family Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And it
wow.
is $50 for a Streator area student. It's 1/6 of their tuition.
Wow.
Now, again, we've been asked, why isn't it $0? I've had, thank you. Thank you. But no, I cannot go through all of this hiring of faculty and all this stuff and then not have somebody be committed and show up. But I do say that on the application, there is a place for them to write. I say, this is tuition. And I talk to the Streator-based applicants and say, this is that. But there's a little place for them to check to say, we would need financial assistance. And I'm the only person that sees that. It's a private conversation because we do help Streator area students. We do help further abroad students. We have people that come through that want to help students. So we try to take away any roadblocks for them to be able to attend. We've even looked into, in the future, how to help with transportation or anything. We want to make it so that there's nothing stopping you aside from being committed and carving out that time to being involved.
Great. And then as far as volunteering, so website?
Yes.
Where do people go? I'm glad I remember that.
I know,
I don't
me
even
too.
have it written down. But
yeah, we have a tremendous website. So it's Poco a Poco.
Yeah.
It's an Italian music term. Probably should have started with that. That literally means little by little.
Yes.
It's a good mantra for professional musicians like myself. It's a good mantra for student musicians. It's a good mantra as a startup nonprofit. Little by little, try to grow sustainably. So that's POCOAPOCO.org. We have a YouTube channel. It's a little harder to find because obviously Poco a Poco in Italian and Spanish, there's a lot of Poco a Pocos on YouTube. So go try to find it through our website. There's just a link down there, but I highly recommend it because all of our concerts from last year and promos, we had this amazing guest lecture series in 2020 with people from all over the world that sent in and actually talked with our students in lifetime. It was fantastic. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page. And I love talking about it. And I do not hesitate. Somebody can say, I have a student that's interested. I just need you to talk to them, answer some questions. Or I regularly have students that say, would you talk to my parent on the phone? Because if they know a little more about this, and I get it, they're like, what is this thing? And who is this person? And what are they promising you? I will gladly just set up a time, talk to somebody in lifetime, meet them for coffee or talk to them on the phone. I love talking about it. And if anybody ever wants to follow what I'm doing, I also have katetombaugh.com. I have a YouTube channel, and because sometimes people want to know when I'm singing in the area or a little bit farther abroad. And
you have dates on your website, I think, right? Is that correct?
I do.
So for performance dates and things like that?
For Poco a Poco for me.
Well, for both, I think.
Poco a Poco is in great shape. My personal website needs a little bit of work, but hey, by the time they hear this, it's going to be ship shape, perfect form.
Great.
And we'll put links to all the Poco a Poco stuff in the description.
Much.
Yes.
I just said that, so it will happen.
So it'll happen now.
That's wonderful.
There it is. So, fantastic. Well, Kate, thank you so much for sharing your heart for music. It's so good to have another Woodland grad here, and just to be able to have that connection in music between
really cool.
all of us. And
thank you.
So thank you so much for what you're doing for the next generation of musicians here in Streator as well, and we're glad to have you back. We're glad to have you back and a part of our community again. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the We Are Here podcast.